welcome to our weekly webinar. Glad you're here. Hope you're having a great week, enjoying this beautiful weather. Hopefully it's as beautiful where you are as it is here in Nashville where we are. My name is Jesse Smith. I'm the operations director for Patent Logistics and the operations consultant, one of the many consultants for Route Consultant. You may have seen me on a past webinar, maybe on a YouTube video, at a road show, at the expo. If you're here for the first time, welcome. If you're one of our longtime attendees, welcome back. So we hope that you find today's webinar helpful. It's going to be educational, informative, and most of all fun. I think you'll really enjoy the discussion we're going to have today with my co-host, which I'll bring on here in a few minutes. So before I get started, as I do every week, I've got to read a quick disclaimer. Route Consultant is not endorsed by, it is not recommended by Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Route Consultant is not sponsored by, is not approved by, is not associated with, and has no connection whatsoever with Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Okay, so if you've been here before, you know we have a little tradition we like to do every single week. We've got our question of the day. Now, we actually called an audible right at the end here, right before we got started, because my co-host and I decided we have something very important in common. That is, what is your favorite Starburst? We found out that we had the same favorite color. So if you hate Starburst, you can put that too. We'll still consider reading your question, but there's only one right answer to this question. What is your favorite color of Starburst? So answer that. If you have a question for us, make sure you answer our question first, and then put your question in the Q&A button at the bottom. If you use the chat, we may not see it, we may miss it. So make sure it goes in the Q&A part of the webinar at the bottom. Okay, so what's your favorite Starburst? Be thinking about that. Again, there's only one right answer. It should come to your mind immediately. Get ready to put that in. Okay, we got a few events and a little bit of inventory I've got to get to before we get to our content portion today. The first event I'm going to tell you guys about, it is tomorrow. So my last minute RSVP people out there in the Middle Tennessee area, we have our road show sponsored by Exos Trucks right here at our Route Consultant home office in Brentwood, Tennessee. If you want to come to that, just RSVP on our website. Exos is actually going to have a ride and drive event with a real EV vehicle out in our parking lot. I believe it's, I think it's a P1000, might be a P700, but you get to come drive that yourself just to see if you like it. I guarantee you will. I've driven this before. It's an incredible piece of technology that they've got. Come drive that. It's all about, it's fleet based. So we're going to be talking about everything P&D fleet focused. We're going to have lots of good content, and then we'll have an open bar and plenty of time for networking and connecting at the end. So come see us tomorrow right here in Nashville at our home office. And again, weather's supposed to be gorgeous. You get to test drive a truck if that's something you want to do. And then, of course, we got to tell you again about our expo in Las Vegas. It's July 29th and 30th this year at the Paris Hotel out in Las Vegas. routeconsultant.com/events if you want to RSVP for either of those two things. Okay, we've got a couple of new listings on our site. They're both P&D listings today. The first one is in Southern New Hampshire. So this one is an 11 route P&D operation at 1.325 million. That's 79.86% of revenue. It's an EBITDA margin on this one of 21.4%. Comes with one manager. The manager is the BC, and he has 3 years of experience with the company. It comes with 9 spare trucks, which is really good for that size operation. 9 spare trucks, remote ownership. It sounds like it's a really smooth, well-oiled machine of an operation. And then it's a 6-day work week, which is also something that people are kind of looking at these days. If you want a guaranteed day off, not including peak season, they generally want you to run Sundays during peak. But if you're looking for a 6-day work week throughout the year, this is one for you. Higher mileage routes provide opportunity for improved profitability. You get a higher per stop rate with these more rural country routes. And the business, as you can tell from that EBITDA, it's got a really great profit margin on this one. So Southern New Hampshire, that's number one. The other one is also in Southern New Hampshire. We got a 15 route operation. This one's listed at 971,000 or 53.94% of revenue. That's an EBITDA margin of 9.1%. Comes with one manager also, and this manager has been with this company for 9 years. It's a really good track record. 5 spare trucks. The current owner has been a FedEx Ground contractor for 36 years. So you would expect this one to be a pretty good, well-oiled machine as well. It's been, guy's been doing it for a long time. We think we would know what he's doing, would pass along a great business to you. A seasoned driver roster. Many of the drivers have been employed with the business for many years. This business within this terminal covers the largest CSA in the area, so the largest territory. This one covers a big one. It is dense and resides in close proximity to the terminal. So if you're looking for lower costs on maintenance and things like that related to your fleet, this would be a really good option for you. And assumable truck debt is available for this particular business. So if you're interested in New Hampshire, there's two really good opportunities available for you there on the P&D side. Okay, so now I'm about to bring on my co-host. You've seen her before on here. We're going to talk today about Qual Cert, qualification, certification, the thing that is rolling out across the country and all the different terminals. If you're a current FedEx contractor, you know about this. You've probably gotten a list of drivers from your terminal manager saying these people need to be Qual Certed, these people are not yet compliant. And then also going forward, your 3-day drive, your new drivers have to go through a 3-day Qual Cert course process. So this is what we're going to talk about today, getting you up to speed on everything Qual Cert related. And with that, I'm going to bring on Toni Tovi, the founder and president of Bright Flag Recruiting. Welcome, Toni. It's always good to see you.
Thank you.
Bright Flag, I think it's safe to say, the undisputed leader in the FedEx ground recruiting space. So, Toni, I'm going to let you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us, kind of walk us into Qual Cert and how Bright Flag is involved with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure to do these webinars with you guys. So I am Toni Tovi, the president of Bright Flag. I'm also running for president of the United States. I'm just joking. But that is like my official Bright Flag pin. Anyone can have one. I'll hand them out at all the RC events. But we are the premier turnkey recruiting solution in the P&D and line haul space for FedEx and for Amazon. We have about 40 recruiters on staff and service. Right now, I think it's over 450 clients across the US. So super proud of that. Love what we do. And we have brought to you guys a really big value add rolling out in the P&D space specifically for the Qual Cert program. And as Jesse mentioned, I know you guys are probably getting hammered with these compliance emails telling you guys that you have to have your drivers qualified with a certified trainer by a certain date. And so one of the things that Bright Flag has created is a partnership with GroundCloud to where we will do the in-classroom training portion for you guys if you're using GroundCloud. The reason we partner with GroundCloud is they are the premier safety resource in this space. Of course, they have the renowned Jerry Veris, and we wanted to partner with the best in the business, and GroundCloud is that. And so if you are using GroundCloud or if you're not using GroundCloud, you should definitely get hooked up with them. But we will offer the Qual Cert in-classroom training portion, unlimited drivers per month for a flat fee, whether you're a Bright Flag client or not. So if you guys reach out to us through our inquiry page on our website, we will give you a call and explain to you how that process works. We have some DCs on staff that are really incredible with creating a very seamless and streamlined process to get those drivers qualified through that first day of training. We also make sure they take the test. We have a visualization that lets you know when they're signed up for the class, when they've completed the class, if they passed the class, and then once we've uploaded that information into the GroundCloud portal. So that's kind of the high level overview. And then we're happy to go more in depth with you on a conversation if you reach out to us and kind of explain that process and that SOP as it progresses.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's real important for people to know, because Toni, I've gotten a lot of calls about this specific situation where we've seen FedEx has given some guidance in the past about it, but kind of depending on the terminal you're in, it's not always been super clear to contractors what the next step is in the Qual Cert process for their drivers. They know they have to do it. They know it's something that's required, but they're not sure, okay, how do I get from this piece of paper that FedEx gave me that says you have X number of drivers that are not compliant to fully compliant, ready to go? Because we've had some contractors that have heard from FedEx, if you don't get your people Qual Certed, they're going to go inactive. And so real briefly, I just kind of want to give a background to this for people that are maybe not familiar with it, or if you know about it and just don't know the process yet. So essentially what's going on here is that you've got a 3-day course. It's a defensive driver training course called Qual Cert. There's several different vendors that offer it. Any new driver that comes in to start working for you, and in most areas, this is already in force, right? So if you bring in a new driver, this program has replaced having to have driving experience. Now, there's places where First Advantage will probably still accept having that driver, that commercial driving history, but now they are also wanting this uploaded certificate that the course has been completed. And so there's a 3-day process that a new driver has to go through. But then in addition to that, all of your current existing drivers have to be put through as well. And that's a 2-day course. And what's involved in that for both of them, it's the same classroom training. So you're going to get the same material, whether it's a new driver or an existing driver. So that's number one. There's a final exam, like you mentioned, Tony, at the end of that. And then if it's a new driver, they're going to go through what we call mock route scenarios. So this is where a certified trainer through one of the vendors that I talked about, and obviously we recommend GroundCloud. They are the premier provider of this. If you go through them, they're going to have what's called, they're going to have a walkthrough sheet for you. And this is something that we have partnered with you guys at Bright Flag as well to provide to contractors. It's a complete SOP of what to expect in this program. But essentially what's going to happen is your new drivers are going to have to go through mock route scenarios after they've completed that classroom portion, followed by that standard road test that you always have to upload for new drivers. Okay, so there's a lot more that can be said about that process, Tony, but that's one thing that you guys have really kind of nailed, is getting that process from literally when they sign up with you guys to getting them through the finish line. That this is no different, right? I mean, this is the same deal. We know the Qual Cert process. You guys know the Qual Cert process. You want to just kind of talk about what that process looks like from the First Advantage perspective and maybe the administrative perspective?
Yeah, so the one part in the First Advantage piece, or the only part really that you have to be cognizant of, is that each individual Qual Cert program has their own road test. So you're not using the old standard road test that you used to upload. What was it, the OP 103? Is that what it was called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you actually have either a GroundCloud road test or Impact Solutions or whichever, JJ Keller. And once that road test is complete, you will just send it to us. And then we will upload that in First Advantage. First Advantage will connect with whatever system that you're utilizing. Obviously, it'll talk to CDOS, and then that driver will be made compliant in First Advantage. And then they'll be able to come in and get badged after they do that last, 8-hour training, Jesse, on the road. Yeah. And so Bright Flag, we do a video in classroom portion. So it's live. It's not like we're sending you guys something that's pre-recorded and people can fall asleep while they're watching it and then just kind of like run through the questions and take the task. Like, we are watching them, we are interacting with the drivers to make sure that they're fully understanding like what we're teaching them, the components of safety that makes it imperative to use this system, right? So that they're going to be safer drivers for you guys, have less accidents. And then we're going to give you that feedback on how that driver did to make sure that we're not just pushing people along for the sake of pushing them along. After we upload that information into GroundCloud for that initial day, then you'll have to complete that second and third with your Qual Cert trainer. We don't do a boots on the ground, driving tests and observed hours and all of that. We're just doing that initial piece to alleviate that time off of your BC's plate or whoever you have put in that position to do the Qual Cert. It's a really time consuming, cumbersome piece of it. And so we're just trying to streamline that piece for you. And we also work within Monday through Friday. So it really adheres to the driver's schedule. So you can get them through as quickly as possible to get to that next step, to get them in compliance with the safety program. And then once they made it through that process, you'll send that road test, like I said, back to us. We'll upload it in First Advantage. We'll let you know once we've uploaded, once that file pops compliant, so that you can be looking for those other steps of process to be continuously finished. And then that way they can actually get on the road and start driving for you. And like I said, we do it whether you're using us for recruiting or you're just using this as just a value service separate from the recruiting piece. But we'll do that initial piece for you in terms of the training and classroom portion.
Yeah, you mentioned something there, Tony, that I think is really important. And that is, even though this can be a little bit of a hassle and a challenge to get your drivers compliant with, we fully believe in what this program is designed to do, which is to make safer drivers out there on the road and promote a culture of safety within each of the small businesses that contract with FedEx Ground, right? I mean, that's kind of the end goal. If we can't stay safe while we're out there doing it, it all kind of doesn't matter. And the thing that was happening was we were seeing people come into the space with DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever kind of experience in a smaller passenger vehicle. And there's nothing wrong with that, but driving one of those trucks is not the same as driving a 26-foot straight truck or a 30-foot step van, right? It's just not the same type of thing. Different techniques are required. And that is something that this program is specifically designed to do. It's designed to change the driver's mindset around what it means to drive a bigger vehicle, the greater responsibility that you have with it, and then some specific driving techniques for whether it's getting house to house or backing into a dock. I mean, there's a lot of good meat, a good content in these courses that I think are really beneficial and are going to make a difference in these drivers. So again, I would just encourage you, don't just look at this as a box you have to check off. Do it right. Just make sure the drivers invest and are participating. And that's the other thing you said, Tony, was that, with you guys, the classes don't just involve them watching pre-recorded content. The trainers are actively soliciting participation and answers and feedback from the drivers, from the students, the entire class. And so we make sure that they get exactly what they've signed up to get through this course.
Yeah, and we have a SOP to continue after the in-classroom training portion. So if you guys are kind of out there trying to figure out what's happening on My Ground Biz and trying to piece together the rest of this piece of the process, we've already created that step of process for you, and we're happy to share that with you. To make sure that you guys are moving along in this process as quickly and efficiently as possible, because it's already elongating the hiring process. So we need to get these drivers on the road, making money for themselves and being profitable for your operations. And Jesse, I just want to ask you a question because I think it's really important. I know a lot of people have a lot of angst around the new Qual Cert process because it is elongating in a lot of aspects, the hiring process, and they feel like sometimes they're getting people in, they're not following through. I just want to ask you, from your perspective as a BC, safety culture is so important. How do you see this being a positive impact for the contractors who we're just bringing in? Because let me just digress for a second. When we were going through COVID, we were just everybody was out there just taking as many people as they can to get in, right? And we were just trying to fill seats with bodies. I mean, obviously with the best ones, but that came with the caveat of having people who really weren't prepared to drive certain vehicles. Right. And so it was kind of square peg, round hole. And even though this process makes it a little bit harder, how do you see this positively impacting the bottom line in safety culture with, mitigating accidents, having less attrition because you're pouring more into that driver to create that safety culture? Why do you see this as a benefit, and how do you see this positively impacting FedEx Ground as a whole?
Yeah, that great question. It just goes back to what I was saying about, this genuinely does make better, safer drivers. Now, with the caveat there of, and this is an issue if you have a veteran driver that goes 5 years without an accident and then have 2 accidents in a week, right? It's not that there's never going to be one-offs. It's just that this is going to be a net positive, I think, and just help you not have to pay as many contributions to Schedule L. It's gonna help you not have to go dip back into that recruiting as much as you might otherwise have to, because again, your drivers are staying safe. And FedEx, along with Qual Cert, we've seen them really kind of crack down on what is a chargeable claim that contractors have to pay when they do have a safety incident, right? And so cutting down on those, even if it's just they learn a particular technique to back into a driveway more safely, and it saves them from when they would have otherwise hit a mailbox, right? And that can turn into a 6-month process that you're dealing with ARC and claims not getting paid or getting paid, and then they're charging you, and it's just a headache. And if you can teach them even little tiny things to avoid these little and no accident is I'm not trying to say any accident is not serious, but the mailbox accidents, the gutter accidents, the stuff where you're just hitting little things, right? And those really add up. And so that's where I think this can be a huge value add, is we get these drivers specific training that's relevant to the kind of trucks that they drive, so that we're not just using their experience driving DoorDash as a stand-in, for being a real professional, full-time, this is your job, driving this big truck, slinging cardboard. We get them in that right mindset, and we tell them, look, this is a greater responsibility than you would have if you're just driving your personal vehicle. So all those reasons and more, I could go a lot longer on this, Toni, but I think it's going to be a net win in the end for contractors.
Well, and I just have to say, coming from an AO background, I'm glad that this process exists, because you're pouring into these drivers a lot more. I know some people's MO, and it certainly was ours when we first got in, because we didn't know anything about anything coming into logistics from private equity, but we were just putting people on the road. Like, we didn't have like a really robust training process. And so we saw that attrition, we saw those constant accidents. And so for some of the people who maybe aren't as versed in like a stronger training process, this is going to level those drivers up and put them in a position to have safer drivers. And like you said, less attrition, which affects their bottom line, because they're not having to spend all those ad dollars continuously recruiting. They're not having to spend all of those training dollars, training new people coming in. I mean, it just really creates a longevity for the culture of those drivers and for the organization, builds morale. And when you have drivers that are comfortable in what they're driving, they're going to stay longer. They're going to be safer. They're going to feel more assimilated, more acclimated to what they're driving. And they're going to tell their friends to come over, opposed to just being thrown in a seat and saying, good luck, don't hit that median, which I've never done.
Exactly. Yeah. Of course, we're all accident free here, right? Yeah.
All accident free.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, that's exactly right, Toni. I think it is going to be a win, and it's going to get them again in the right mindset. That's the whole point of a lot of the curriculum. It starts out with the idea of a professional mindset. And that's just what you got to have. I mean, we see so many drivers come into the spaces, hey, this is my next job to get me on my career path. What I think needs to happen, I've said this for a long time, is that what needs to happen is you need to already have more career-minded drivers. And, we've seen some recent increases to the MISOs, to the contracts as of last month. So there's potentially going to start being a little bit more. And as we see express volume come into the network, I think we'll end up seeing a kind of a trajectory towards more money in the contracts for drivers to be paid more, so that they will feel like they have that investment. But along with that, if you're able to pay your drivers more, but you're still having the same amount of accidents, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to be spinning your wheels, right? So along with that trajectory, I think what FedEx is saying is we want to transition some of these as kind of just these gig economy type drivers into, this is my professional job, this is my career, this is something I need to take seriously and invest in, just so that I'm safe and safe for everybody around me. That's that professional mindset. That's what this program is designed to do.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
So, Toni, we're going to get into some questions, and I just want to remind you all here, it does not have to be a question about Qual Cert. It can be a question about literally anything that Route Consultant deals with here. If it is a Qual Cert specific question, I can definitely take that. I've dealt with this a whole lot over the last couple months. I know a lot about the SOPs and the process and what's required at what point in the process. So ask me all your Qual Cert questions. DRO is another one I love to tackle if you got DRO questions. But you got Toni here. So definitely bring in your recruiting questions, anything related to recruiting, First Advantage, any of the pain points there, bring them to Toni. She's seen it. She's dealt with it. She's the expert. She can tell you what you need to know. So with that, Toni, I don't see any questions yet. So let's go ahead and tell them what the right answer is for the Starburst color. What is it, Toni?
Can I go? Okay, so it is a resounding pink. Yes, absolutely. All pink all day. If you're eating a yellow, I don't know if we can work together. Like, I might have a little bit distrust for you, because lemon's just like lemon, but pink is pink. It's like strawberry. It's delicious. It's the best there is.
It is the best. It is the perfect flavor. Yeah.
What's your close second though? Because I know this is like really, point of topic for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Inquiring minds need to know, like, what is your second? I'm going to go with that.
Okay. It's hard because pink is up here, then everything else is just way down here. If I had to choose, I'm going to go with orange.
Orange?
Yeah, I do love me some orange.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What's yours, red?
Yeah, I was going to go with that cherry.
Yeah, it had to be either orange or red for me, but I have to say orange takes it for me if I had to choose a second.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go like oranges on the very, very bottom with the yellow. Although I do love some tropical flavors as well. Just speaking about some of the offerings that Bright Flag have, since I have a floor, do you have any questions before I go into Bright Flag
Yes, we have had 3 pop in just right at once here,
I
Toni.
just scared you all.
Yeah, so we actually made some people mad because we were so emphatic about pink. So we have some resistance to that. So Daryl Kelly, orange or resounding orange is his favorite. So okay, I'll give you that one, Daryl. It's my second. So he asked, is Qual Cert for P&D only? Yes, it is. Line haul, you have to take, if you know anything about the CDL world, that is not a cheap or a short process to get your CDL. That's kind of the stand-in for being able to and certified to drive a bigger vehicle, is having that CDL. And also you have to have 1 year of experience driving a similar tractor trailer combo coming into the line haul space for FedEx before you can get behind the wheel of line haul. So you kind of have some stuff built in there. Yeah, Toni.
I was going to say there is a caveat to that.
Okay.
There is a list of qualified schools, certified schools. And if a driver has gone to one of those schools that is on the FedEx approved list, and there is a list that exists, and I can get it for you if you'd like. So if you reach out to me, I will be happy to send the most updated list to you. But there are schools in each state that qualify. And so if your driver has gone to one of those schools and has a certificate in hand, and that's important to know, it doesn't have to be like a physical paper, but meaning that they completed the school, they don't owe the school any money, and they've received a certificate of completion from like 160 Driving Academy or Roadmaster or Transforce or one of those. If they have that certificate, whether it's digital or physical in hand, and then they have 6 months of over the road Class A tractor trailer driving experience, that actually will suffice for the 1 year. And then of course you can always hire ELDP drivers. And that's kind of the same mindset of this Qual Cert program, but on the line haul side. It takes a little bit of finagling and understanding of how to train them and make it profitable with your certified trainers on the line haul side, coaching and driving and training those CDL drivers that are coming in fresh out of school. But if they have that certificate, you can bring them in and train them with a safe driver that is qualified under the FedEx requirements. But it's the same idea where you are getting somebody fresh and you are, teaching them the safety culture and the ways that FedEx wants them to drive, and you're getting them those hours underneath their belt so then they can actually drive by themselves and alone. And so if anybody has any questions about the ELDP program or how to utilize the certificate with the 6 months of driving experience, please reach out. Happy to walk you through that if you're on the line haul side.
Yeah, great answer. Yeah. I actually had a close friend that did that, Toni. He came in fresh off. He was a P&D driver, transitioned to the line haul side, and that's exactly what he did. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, great ad there. Okay, James Flynn, an emphatic red, and he even says we are wrong for saying pink. So James Flynn, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and read your question, but we do not agree. Toni, he says, I saw the Bright Flag email on WOTC program. Can you give us a 50,000 foot overview on this?
Yes, I can. So it's going to be a little ambiguous. Mr. Flynn, who is a contractor of ours, so thank you for utilizing Bright Flag. We appreciate you partnering with us. But the purpose of that to come out was just to see how much interest it garnered. We're going to announce the step of process and how to utilize that program as a Bright Flag client. That's going to come out in the next month. But right now, that was just to put our feelers out there to see within the FedEx system who is interested in utilizing this program to get free money back, essentially. So everybody should have their hand up because we do it on the line haul side and we do it on the P&D side. But essentially, there are 10 different buckets that qualify drivers for you to be able to get taxes back on that driver. There's 10 different buckets. About 7 of them are applicable to our FedEx silo and our requirements. More to come on that, but basically Bright Flag will identify those drivers as we're recruiting for you to make sure they fall in one of those buckets. And then we will take the necessary paperwork, submit it to your state. And then after we get that information, we will submit it to you at the end of the year of all the drivers that qualify for this tax credit. And then you'll just give that information to your CPA and you will get that free money that you are leaving on the table by utilizing this WOTC work opportunity tax credit. So that's the high level overview, but more to come, more in-depth information. Right now, we're just trying to put the feelers out there to see who's interested in free money. And pretty much everybody has said, yes, how does this work and how do we utilize it? The only caveat is that you have to be a Bright Flag client. So sorry if you're not, but it gives you a really great opportunity to come and see who Bright Flag is, why we have a great, such a great reputation in this space, and why we're always trying to bring value add to our contractors and make it more easy for you guys to use our services and make it more profitable for you guys. So,
yeah, well said. All right, we got another one here. A great question from Laura Gayton. Although she didn't tell us what her favorite Starburst was, so I think she's scared of our wrath, Toni.
She has to. She's a yellow.
Yeah. Laura, go ahead and type that in, but we'll go ahead and read your question while you were putting that in. So Laura asks, how much longer will this process extend the hiring process? Great question.
So there's a lot of different ways that you can tackle it. Some people are starting the drivers as soon as the background checks come through. They're starting them in training processes while they're waiting for the drug testing or the DOT results to populate. There's a couple of different ways to do it. For Bright Flag clients, we like to get them through all the steps of process, sans the road test, before we start them into the Qual Cert process. And that's just because we want to have them have the sweat equity right before we start spending training dollars, because it is going to be a little bit more expensive for you guys to train these drivers. And so we want to make sure there's some stickiness, one, that they pass their drug test, one, that they can actually qualify for a DOT card, their MVR comes back approved, their employment's been verified, if they put employment on their application. So we like to make sure all of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted before we start them in that process. It typically, what would you say, Jesse, honestly, because you've done more training on the operations side. So how much would you say it elongates it?
I don't think it adds much, if anything, Toni. And it's still new enough where I don't have just a ton of data to answer that question like full scale. But from what I can tell, I mean, once you get a FedEx ID number and you get a ground cloud driver profile, you could theoretically go through it at any time. So, I mean, if you know that it's someone, like, let's say it's someone you bring to Bright Flag and say, I already know this person's solid, they're a friend of mine or something, I just get them a First Advantage, work order started and get them a FedEx ID. At that point, that can go into the driver profile in ground cloud. We can get them Qual Certed up until the road test. We can get everything else done, right? So it doesn't have to add any time. But like you said, Toni, I think that's a great addition. Is you need them to kind of show some investment, because there's been quite a few people that, as you guys know, you get people through, they start the process, then they don't finish the process. If you've already spent time getting them in a virtual class, and by the way, there is a limit on those classes of 4 people. All right. So if you try to put a bunch of people through that don't end up making it all the way through the process, you potentially squeeze someone else out that you could have gotten Qual Certed from your team earlier. Right. And so just be careful with that. Like you said, I'd wait a little bit longer, but I don't think it has to take any longer. It's not like it's a super long, drawn out process. The road test is done typically the classroom and final exam typically takes less than 4 hours. Okay. So it's not a long, it's 4 hours max. Sometimes if it's a smaller class, we can get done less than that. So it's not a big time commitment, but it does kind of show that, yes, if they made it to that point, this is likely someone you want to put in. Like you said, Toni, I would wait till they get a little bit ways down the road through the process and then put them in. Yeah.
But then in terms of just elongating, like from inception of getting them through First Advantage to when they actually start, would you say it's about a 3 to 5 day extra time frame from street to seat if they're doing the Qual Cert process? Like, how much on the back end?
You're talking about like the observed hours. Is that what you're talking about?
I think that's potentially what she might have asked.
I don't think it will add any, because ideally, once someone gets eligible to be behind the wheel, those first couple of days are going to be with the trainer most of the time anyway. Now, not always. I know some people like to do it a little different. They'll send them out with a super light route. Or if they think they can handle it, they'll send them out with a heavier route, right? But all you're doing is basically you do have to pull one other person away from their route to make sure that they get those observed live route hours after they've been approved. And so depending on your process, I don't think it has to add any time. But
Okay.
if you're not used to putting a trainer in the jump seat with the driver, it's going to add a couple days because you've got to take that person off of their route to put them with the new person. So that's kind of the only potential hiccup I would see.
Gotcha. And that makes a lot of sense. And I just was trying to clarify
Yeah.
between the time it takes to actually do the in-classroom training portion, then to finish the rest of the process,
Sure.
whether it be the observed or on the road hours, and then to the time where they're doing that final road test.
Yeah.
And then in the seat actually training. And then one thing, Jim, I forgot to mention to you, and this is the biggest win of the WOTC tax credit, is each driver is eligible for up to $6,000 annually you can get back for them a year. So that's a
Yep.
pretty big selling point.
Yeah, no doubt.
The longer they're with your company, the more money you actually get for that driver being employed with you. And it's free money.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, we got one from Andy Rod, one of our regulars here, Tony. He is a chocolate guy. Okay, well, I can't really fault you for that, Andy. So he says, if I ate Starburst, it would be red. So, okay. All right.
Second.
Yep, second place for Tony. So she'll let you slide on that one. Okay, so he says, Tony, I'm impressed with the vinyl to your right. So that's, yeah, very good prop there, Tony. Do you agree with recruiting for L10s in order to get quantity? And if they are good, moving them up? Seems to have been much more difficult if we recruit for L20s right off the bat, or is it better to do both / something else? Kind of what's the best strategy if you're looking to move volume through and get more people trained up?
Yeah, the L10 is a great program, but that's going to be eradicated with the Qual Cert program. So it's not going to be an L10 versus an L20. Everybody's going to come in at the same playing field. So if someone has 10 years of driving a Humvee, supporting our country, and someone has, 2 months of DoorDash, they're going to come in and they're going to train the exact same way through that Qual Cert program. So whether they've been driving and they've got some bad habits or they've got great habits, they're going to be on the same playing field, which is going to open that pool of candidates that you would typically try to find with the L10. It's just going to make it a lot safer because they're all going to have a standardized process of training through the Qual Cert program. So until you have to move to the Qual Cert, yes, I think that you can, look for L10 drivers and then level them up. But you're still going to have to go through that Qual Cert program all the same once you are forced to move into that process. And it's coming, they rolled it out in tiers, but I think that there is a deadline that is, quickly approaching to where if you're not on board with that, at least training your current drivers and getting them qualified through that Qual Cert, I think you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So I would say go ahead and be proactive on that, even if it's not a deadline specifically for your area. But yes, L10's an easy way to get volume in. Not always the safest way, but definitely the easiest way. But you're going to be able to bring those in through the Qual Cert program now. And they're all going to be able to start as an L20 driver.
Right.
So that's the positive of this program is they're going to be trained in the larger vehicles and they're going to be safer in those larger vehicles. The same way as if you brought them in as an L10 and then leveled them up through an L20.
Yeah, very well said. That's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, they're all going to come in on the same plane, one single type of profile, I would think, in First Advantage, right? It may still be called L20 or L or whatever it is, right? But the L10 is essentially going to go away.
From my contacts at First Advantage, the L10 isn't going to be an option. So they're all going to come in as L20, even though they don't have that experience. But that's where you have to go through that process. And that's where you have to utilize that road test that's specific to the Qual Cert program that you're using. And that's where it's going to replace that OP 103 with that specific training road test.
Got it.
And then just to circle back, Andy, everything sounds better on vinyl. So thanks for appreciating that. I'd be playing Tom Petty's Dan the Torpedoes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Great.
By the way, Laura did come back and say pink all the way. All right, Laura, thank you. Yes, we love you. All right. So guys, if you have any more questions, go ahead and get them in. We got one more here, Tony. Oh, another one from Andy, a follow-up. Okay. The first one is from anonymous attendee, Tony. They say, what's the punishment for missing the deadline for not completing Qual Cert? There is a contractor who has 3 out of 18 drivers trained and his trainer has now lost his certification for an accident. Oof. Okay. You want to take that one or you want me to?
Well, you can answer the one of them becoming inactive as a driver, which really okay. So you can answer.
Yeah, that's the main one there. Anonymous is that if they miss the Qual Cert, they will go inactive. and they will have to start from the beginning again with First Advantage, which, as we all know, is a hassle. So that's going to be the biggest punishment they would get. That's what we've heard threatened, and I think that's what we're going to start seeing.
Yeah, and I would say for your second question, leverage your contacts in the terminal. I know a lot of companies that they haven't quite finished the Qual Cert Train the Trainer program, and so they're using their buddies on, within the same station, or somebody who's already qualified, and they're leveraging them to train their drivers, because anybody can really train them as long as they've gone through the Train the Trainer program and you guys are using the same safety program. If you're using, or your trainer was with Ground Cloud, we can do that in classroom training portion, to where you'd only have to use that Qual Cert trainer for the second and the third day, which might help you and alleviate that pain point until you get another person trained up. Or you guys can pull resources with other trainers, with other companies in your terminal and station to, utilize that person throughout all the different companies. So there's a couple different options there. You're not completely out of luck, but you might want to find somebody sooner rather than later that can take over for the person that you lost, unfortunately.
Yep. Good call. And so, Andy, I see your follow-up question. I'm going to skip over you and come back, because we have a question from Ryan that has to do with the one we just answered. So, Andy, I'll get right back to you. Okay. Ryan asks, first of all, Ryan says orange for sure. So, okay, we'll go with it. Can you elaborate on how your trainer can get disqualified from being a CT? Thanks.
That's one for you. That's one for you, bud.
Okay. So there's a couple different things that can happen. If they go inactive and they do not log into a scanner for 60 days, that's way number one. Okay. So they have to maintain active driving credentials. To be a trainer, you obviously have to have a previous, from when you go into the 5-day in-person course to get certified, you have to be accident-free and assigned to duty as a FedEx ground driver. It does not have to be with the contractor that sends you. You just have to have been a FedEx ground driver for the previous 12 months from the day that you go to the course. And you have to be preventable accident-free during that time as well. So with that being said, you can imagine if you have a preventable accident, it will nullify your CT credentials. And so you'll have to go back and get recertified. FedEx has not been super clear on what that recert process looks like yet. But what I know from Ground Cloud, what I've talked to them, is we should have some clarity on that by this summer. They know that that's going to be a thing that's going to start getting, trainers are going to start coming up on a deadline. I'm actually about a year into my CT status, and it's a 24-month certification. So Ground Cloud does not anticipate that it will have to be another 5-day in-person course. It likely will just be probably a glorified test like you would take that the drivers have to take, but we just don't know yet. And so just kind of stay tuned. We will keep you updated on that. The second we hear something, we'll let you guys know about that. But yeah, having an accident, not logging into a scanner, having failing a random drug test, anything that would pretty much knock you out of the system will nullify your CT credentials as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to Andy's question. I remain a chocolate lover. I'm not doing the onboarding for our team, and I am sure our BC is on it. But with the new program, will everyone have to be drug tested? We brought in the L10s because the drug testing DOT physical really slows everything down. So, Toni, you want to kind of give a brief overview of like, what do you have to have, not have for an L10, and why someone would do that?
Yeah, obviously it's a much quicker process, because they're not having to follow the DOT federal guidelines, because they're under 10,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So that's why you can get away with not having a DOT card, because they're not federally DOT regulated vehicles. Right. And also that comes with the caveat of having to do a drug test. So that's why you see all of the Amazon people that apply getting in the Amazon system a lot faster, because it does quicken the process. However, when you bring them in through the L20 program under the new Qual Cert, you will have to do a drug test and you will have to do a DOT physical. So if you're not used to that process, obviously it's going to be a little bit more elongated, but you're going to have safer drivers all the way around. And those drivers are going to be able to drive the larger vehicles, which they're going to be able to deliver more packages, which is going to make you more profitable. So there are some positives to that. If you want to keep your L10 vehicles, you can. They're just going to be able to drive. You can road test them in an L10, but you should road test everybody in an L20 so that they can move and flex between your smaller vehicles and your larger vehicles in your fleet.
Yeah.
But yes, it's going to make the process a little bit longer, but I'd say 90% of contractors are running predominantly L20. So it's not going to be a big change for the majority of the contractors operating out there.
Yeah. And a follow-up, we'll get to Timothy. I see your question here, but Matthew Beeler, as a follow-up, he says, I guess what I'm in is, as a contractor, what is the punishment for not qual certing your drivers on time? Is it OTC? Yes, it'll be the same process. It's considered a breach of contract. So you get a letter of assurance first. If you still avoid it, it'll be an OTC. And the normal process, just like if you were getting excessive accidents, it would be the same general process that they would follow.
Yeah, it's kind of a non-negotiable, like everybody
Right.
has to do.
Yeah.
So with whoever years.
Yeah, exactly. So Timothy and Anonymous. So Timothy's favorite color, Starburst, is orange. And he says, advice on establishing a trainer. And then I'm actually going to lump this one in with Anonymous, which is the last question here. Their favorite is red. As a new AO, can I get certified as a trainer? I want to take those real quick, Tony, and then I'll kick it back to you. I would say I talked to a guy today who is, he's in a very, very remote terminal. He's in an area where there's sort of an oil boom. And so these oil companies are coming in and just cleaning house on every other industry, offering outrageous starting wages. And this guy has lost his certified trainer and about 5 of his drivers to the oil company coming into town. Now, in 2 years, when they move back out, then they're going to be wanting your job back, right? But right now, they're just losing it to the oil boom. And so, and this is not just specific to them. It's really bad for him because he doesn't have any other, there's no other contractors in his building. He is the only contractor out of his building. He's got 100% of the scale of that building. And other contractors in other smaller buildings, they lose their CT. It can be expensive to borrow another person's certified trainer, if you can even find another one who uses the same safety vendor that you use, right? And that's the thing. You got to use every driver has to be qual certed all the way through in the same safety vendor platform, or it will get kicked back by FedEx. And so the long story short there is, I would recommend as an AO that you put yourself through as a certified trainer. And the reason I say that is in conjunction with what Tony is talking about here with this process. You are not talking about a humongous time commitment from yourself in terms of the classroom portion now. That is the biggest thing we are taking off your plate with this program, is essentially saying you don't have to reserve a hotel conference room or take a lot of time out if your drivers don't show up. You've not wasted that money, right? Basically what you would have to do, one of the main things, is do that road test. Now, there will be some other things where you need to run through some mock route scenarios on days 2 and 3 with your new drivers. But essentially the main thing you're doing is taking them through that road test and the obstacle course out in the parking lot. And then you sign off on that form with your FedEx ID. And if it's a valid trainer ID, FedEx will accept it as a valid qual cert. And so because of how much of a commitment it is and how much it costs to get someone certified as a trainer and the potential that person could leave, it's a potentially large liability for your company. So I'm not saying only make yourself as the AO a trainer, but I would highly recommend, if that's something you're able to do, make yourself a trainer as well, because you know that you're bought into your company. And even if you think a BC is a certified trainer, they are in very, very high demand in this industry. Everybody needs their services because, again, FedEx has funneled everything through the certified trainer and what they can do and what they can sign off on. So if you as an AO are able to do that, I would highly recommend doing that. So Timothy, I hope I spoke to your question there as well. Tony, do you want to add anything to that?
Just to piggyback off of what you said, I think that there is a lot of value in making yourself a certified trainer. One of the things that we preach when we have a driver come in for a road test is whoever is doing the road test with them needs to do a final face-to-face interview. You need to size that driver up. You need to kind of talk to the culture of your organization, your expectations, their expectations, to make sure it's really going to be a good fit. Answer anything that they feel like they were lacking from the interview process or anything that wasn't made clear to them, so that everything's super transparent. And that's going to cultivate a relationship and a stronger bond. So if you as the AO are going out there and meeting these drivers, you're going to have that relationship and you're going to be able to say, hey, I think this person's really going to be a good fit. or I think this person's not really going to last. Sometimes you don't know until you give that person their own truck with their own stops. And sometimes you're pleasantly surprised, and then sometimes you're super disappointed, but you're going to have that more intimate personal touch to cultivate that relationship on the front end. And I think that that's a really good value add. So it gives you that leverage that maybe absentee AOs don't have, or people who aren't boots on the ground or operating close to their, where their station is, or terminal is. They're going to have that advantage to actually get that FaceTime with that driver one-to-one. And that's invaluable.
Yeah, that's so important. I will add one thing that I just kind of thought of here. So advice on establishing a trainer, Timothy, one thing that I think would really be helpful, because these trainers are in such high demand, if it's not you as the AO, then what I would do is get out ahead of this and get a CT trained as soon as possible, especially if it's not really well established at your terminal yet. If you can be the first new kid on the block in your terminal, and I just dated myself there, I realized, but if you can be that person in your terminal, what you might want to do is, just to ensure they don't leave your company, you can have other people trained, other drivers trained with your CT, and you can charge a fee for that. Maybe one thing you could do is give your certified trainer a kickback from that fee that you charge, right? Which gives them the ability to earn even more and keeps them invested in staying with you, as opposed to going somewhere else where, if they get hired on for maybe a higher daily rate, but they don't have any kickback from doing one of the main parts of their job, which is certified training, then they're not going to have that much earning potential, right? And so give them a little bit of a kickback from any fee that you charge. If you're the first CT, again, I cannot stress this enough, that person is in such high demand at all these terminals. I get calls all the time about that. Can I get a CT? Can you send a CT out here? And it's what literally gave rise to this Bright Flag program, is this exact issue. So if you can get your BC motivated to potentially earn more, to stay with you, that's what I would definitely recommend.
That's a really, really great point.
Yeah.
It's a really good point.
Okay, a couple more here, Tony, then we'll wrap it up. Rebecca Wiley. All of my drivers have been qual certified. We have some drivers who have not been hired showing up disqualified. How do I get them off the report? You may take that one?
Yes, I know it, but this speaks to your wheelhouse.
Yeah. So Rebecca, the answer to that is any driver who has onboarded with you and is associated with your contract in your association, disassociation page in My Ground Biz account, anyone who is on that list will be showing up as someone you have to qual cert. Okay, so make sure if there's someone that you don't want on that list, disassociate with them. And I forget the name of the form, but get with your PD manager, your senior manager, get the form to where you can remove those drivers from being associated with your contract. That will remove them from you having to qual cert them.
There's nothing for me to add to that. You hit it on the head.
I
knew you would.
Ami Behar, red is my favorite. Okay. How long does it take to become a certified trainer, and what is required?
Well, you became a certified trainer, so I'm gonna let you answer that.
Yeah, it's a 5-day process, Ami. It's got to be in person. So you have to wait until a safety vendor either comes close to your area, or you have to send your trainer out to where they're going to be holding a class. But it's 5-day in person. It costs $2,750 per CT. That's a one-time fee. We don't know about the recert fees, if there's going to be anything associated with that. I just don't know yet, but that's the one-time fee you have to pay. And then basically they come back, they get materials from your safety vendor, and they come back and are able to qual cert your drivers from that point.
And if you have a question on who to reach out to find out about where the trainings are located, if they're near you, yep, or if somebody can come out to your station or terminal, if you reach out to me, I will get you in contact with the right person at Ground Cloud, because you should use them. Yep. And they'll let you know what trainings they have coming up and if they can come to you. And also, if there's other people within your station or terminal that want to utilize their program, they can just do like a class and just do 4 of you guys together. So.
Perfect. All right, Tony, we got 5 minutes, so we'll give them a couple minutes to get more questions. Do you have like a 2-minute wrap up you want to give us, or have you exhausted all of your content here?
I mean, I could talk for hours and hours and hours. I will say that the Saints are my favorite football team. I know that's very pertinent to everybody who's listening to this, and this is why you came here. No, I'm just kidding. I think that's all I have. I mean, the WOTC is going to be a really great value add for you guys and gals, up to $6,000 per driver. Again, the longer they stay, they have to meet a minimum of 400 hours. But after they hit 400 hours, you start accruing money on that person's salary up to the tune of $6,000 per driver. And you wouldn't believe how many people qualify in the buckets. Like there's literally what they call empowerment zones within certain cities that if you hire drivers from those specific markets, they automatically qualify. There's other identifiers, like if they were ever on government assistance, government subsidies, if they were veterans. So Bright Flag is super, super pro-veteran. We work with veterans in trucking, Reefs Across America, women in trucking. So there's certain groups that fall in these buckets that are really easy to identify. And so we can target those specific drivers that will qualify for that WOTC for you guys. And then we're also helping certain demographics get jobs that are going to give them a hand up instead of a handout. And so we're doing a twofold good part here. We're helping people better support themselves and their families, getting better jobs for themselves that they normally wouldn't be able to get. And we're also helping certain demographics like veterans who have supported our country and given us our freedom. So our continued freedom. So we're doing really good work, and we can help you also make money, not leave that on the table, and help those margins that are pretty razor thin right now that we're all seeing. So it's a win-win for everybody, and we do it for you free of charge. It's pretty time consuming, but we make sure that we're reaching out to the right state departments, filing the right paperwork. So all you have to do is literally present that to your CPA and get that free money back. So
Love that.
let's take advantage of it, and more to come on that for the people that were asking.
Toni, thank you for being with us as always. We love seeing you here. Appreciate your wisdom and everything you guys offer at Bright Flag. So we'll hope to see you here again soon. You guys, the window is closed for questions. So everybody who said pink, I think it was just one person. You guys are all correct. Everybody else is wrong. So anyway, thank you all for being here today, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you.